All right, we're using the draft simulator on Fantasy Pros. We're going to do a half point per reception league. 12 teams. We'll randomize our spot, picking third. One quarterback, two running back, two receiver, a tight end, one flex. No defense, no kicker, only 5 bench. We're going to keep it pretty minimalistic. There's a lot of questions with teams this early in the season, so it's not necessarily realistic of where people are going to go when the real draft time starts, but it's fun to just practice different strategies. So Fantasy Pros has this tool where they give you a percentage of the kind of expert suggestion. I don't really like to use that. I like to use their cheat sheets and flip back and forth through the draft board. We can see McCaffrey, Barkley have already been picked. That's pretty common. That's the number one, number two. Usually, the number 3 pick has typically been Michael Thomas. I don't necessarily love Michael Thomas here because I don't necessarily think he's going to repeat what he did last season, but he's a pretty safe pick at receiver. Elliott, Cook, Kamara, great running backs, but they do carry some risk. I think Thomas is probably the biggest guarantee, so we'll take him. He's where the safe money is at this point at the number 3 spot. So he comes off the board. Lots of running backs. We're all the way down to Chris Carson, Kenyon Drake. Kelsey, a tight end, came off late second round. So let's look at what the running back landscape looks like at this point. We could go Jacobs, Gurley, Sanders, Gordon. I like Josh Jacobs. I think we do need some sort of bell cow running back. Hopefully Jacobs gets more of a role in the passing game. If that happens, that could be great for us. Kittle's a suggestion. I think it's still a little early to go tight end, but we could go Kittle here if we really wanted to. If he makes it back to us, I think we have to go Kittle. Let's risk it and see what happens. So we'll go Jacobs here. Kittle came off. I think I saw Lamar go off. Wow, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Lamar Jackson is some big names, but that's going to be a very low depth team when it comes to the wide receiver position. So we have Michael Thomas and Josh Jacobs at this point. We could go another receiver. We're going to get a much better receiver, I think, than we would running back at this point. We'll look at what's available. We go Gurley, Gordon, Ingram, Bell, Singletary. I'm not in love with any of those guys. I think there's a lot of guys of a similar tier. Marlon Mack is probably my favorite one out of that bunch. We go receiver. We get Kenny Galladay as our wide receiver too. I like that a lot. That gives us a pretty safe floor with a guy like Thomas, and then some boom bust potential with Kenny Galladay, a guy who had a lot of air yards and a lot of red zone targets. So let's go Kenny Galladay and let's build a wide receiver, maybe heavier team, and see how that plays out. And Marlon Mack made it back to us. Awesome. I like Marlon Mack as a running back. He's not great in a PPR kind of format, so that isn't the best, but I do like him as a runner, especially behind that line, and I think he's pretty solid. They locked him into an extension, so they're keeping him around. Let's take a look at what's available at the wide receiver position just in case. So we already have 2. We get a guy like Lockett, Woods, Ridley, Chark. I think that's all a similar tier. We could go tight end here and go Ertz. I like Hooper, even though we don't necessarily know what team he's going to end up on. Waller has a pretty safe floor. Ingram is a guy that I have some faith in if he can stay healthy. So there's a lot of tight end options that are similar tiers. Ertz is kind of situational. The Eagles have to kind of lose some people to injury for Ertz to be relevant. So let's go Marlon Mack here. I talked him up. I can't not take him. So let's go Mack. That gives us 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers. So Ertz made it back to us. So we could take him here. And Ertz in the 5th might not be a bad option. Let's take a look. We'll see what we got. So we go Kerryon Johnson, James Conner, Phillip Lindsay as a third running back might not be bad. David Montgomery as a third running back could be good. Obviously, we could go Ertz, Calvin Ridley, DJ Chark, DK Metcalf. You know what? Let's buy into the hype. Let's say DK Metcalf is going to be everything everybody thinks he's going to be. Let's do it. You know what? Let's ride the DK train. I like him. I own him in Dynasty. I got him as a kind of later pick because there was a lot of talk in the combine about how he couldn't necessarily do what people thought he was going to do. He couldn't run routes, and I think he's kind of proved some people wrong. So I don't think that's a terrible pick for us. So at this point, we could go running back. We could go tight end. I think it's still too early to go quarterback in the 6th round. Our tight end that we'd be looking at, I think, would be Ingram. If I can get to the sheets there. I think I saw we could get Montgomery as a 4th running back even. Or would he be our 4th or our 3rd running back? That might not be a bad option. I like Ingram a lot. I don't know if I want to reach this early for a guy that has some injury history, but I feel like the risk with Ingram is as equal to the risk with David Montgomery. So let's go Ingram. I talked him up a little bit. If the guy stays healthy, he's a great tight end, and Daniel Jones proved that he's going to throw to the tight end. The number 2, number 3 tight end for the Giants had some decent numbers this year, so we'll go Evan Ingram tight end. Jameis is still around. I like Jameis Winston as a quarterback, but let's say no quarterback until at least round 8, and we'll see what we got there. And if it comes to us in round 8, then we'll take him. At this point, we need a running back. We need to get a running back. We got to get a 3rd guy, so we'll see what's there. Kareem Hunt. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I think the recent kind of trouble he got into is going to keep him in Cleveland at a low price. Darius Geis is a scary prospect because who knows what he's going to be injury-wise. We could take the risk. I know it sounds crazy, but I like Sony Michel. I think Sony Michel is going to have a bounce-back year and surprise a lot of people. So let's take Sony as our 3rd running back. I had him this past year, and I hated it. I hated having him. I think I dropped him by the end of the season. But you know what? We're doing mock drafts for a reason. We'll see how it pans out to us. All right, we're in the 8th round now. Let's see who's there. Ooh, Antonio Brown coming off the board. That's surprising. So if we want to go quarterback in the 8th round, we could get Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz, Stafford. I like Stafford. Let's take Stafford. Plan for Stafford in the 9th if he's still there. If he's not, then we'll take whoever. Tannehill, Cousins, Roethlisberger. Could go running back here and get Carlos Hyde, Cohen. Robbie Anderson isn't signed to a team yet, so he's a little scary. Emmanuel Sanders is going to be a free agent as well, so who knows. Anthony Miller could be a nice pick. Will Fuller could be a really nice pick if he pans out. I like Curtis Samuel. There's just a lot of good picks here. I don't necessarily think we should reach for quarterback at this point, but I don't love anybody. So what we're going to do is we're going to take Stafford. We're going to take the guy we want now because we're not in love with anybody else. I know this means we're passing up on Aaron Rodgers, but I don't have a bunch of faith in Aaron Rodgers. Turns out we probably could have got Stafford. So I was thinking about it. I think we could go Will Fuller here, or we could go Curtis Samuel. Anthony Miller, I think, is very dependent on the quarterback, and that's a scary thing to think about in Chicago. So we could go Will Fuller and hope that he stays healthy. I like Curtis Samuel to break out this season. There's a lot of talk about what the offense could be like, and he got a ton of air yards, and air yards is how you get those big boom-bust games. That's why Will Fuller, when he plays, puts up those big games. So we'll go Curtis Samuel, and we'll see what that does to our roster. So at this point, in a very limited league, we're probably just going to draft running back, wide receiver the rest of the way. Not going to get a backup quarterback. we might want to get a backup tight end, like maybe a dart throw on somebody. We could do like a Gesicki or a Disley. Disley might not be a bad option as a backup tight end just because. I saw Jordan Howard. I think Jordan Howard's going to surprise some people. I don't think Miles Sanders is going to get the lion's share of carries that everybody thinks. So let's take Jordan Howard because we don't have like the greatest backfield ever. And at this point, we have 2 picks left. So we could go receiver and do Emmanuel Sanders, do Will Fuller. Deontay Johnson is somebody that I've heard a lot about possibly even being the wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh. So let's go Deontay Johnson here. And I think that locks up our receiver position. And then we can just make the decision of if we want to go running back or tight end to end our draft. And we'll look at who's there at tight end. We could go quarterback. That's not a bad strategy. Week 1 is to have a couple quarterbacks and see who has the hot hand, ride the one that you want. Running back, nobody really stands out. Gus Edwards, Darwin Thompson, all like potential guys. Nobody that's a real name to pop out at us. Disley got picked. You know what? Let's go Tannehill. Let's say we're taking Tannehill. Going to see if that hot hand from the regular season this past year carries over. And we'll see what we got. So they give us a B- on our draft. That's not super important. We ended up with Stafford, Jacobs, Marlon Mack, Michael Thomas, Kenny Galladay, Evan Ingram, DK Metcalf. That's probably our go-to roster. And then we have Sony Michel, Jordan Howard at running backs, Curtis Samuel, Deontay Johnson, 2 guys that could be potential breakouts this season. And then Ryan Tannehill, a guy that's, I think, pretty safe to back up Matthew Stafford. So overall, they gave us a B-. I think we deserved a little bit better than that. But that's going to do it for our draft today. Thanks.